Welcome to Scary Stories. We're in the middle of the Yule season, and that includes Hanukkah. In fact, I believe tonight is the last night of Hanukkah. Correct me if I'm wrong. Tonight, as I upload the video, I mean. I was specifically asked to run this story on the last night of Hanukkah 2023, because that was the event that this couple were on their way home from celebrating, when a real-life Dogman intervened to ruin their night. And almost a lot more than that. It's a scary little true story, and it's coming up later in this episode. But first, we've got a very different kind of scary Christmas story. I guess you would call this a ghost story? But it's not like any ghost story I've ever heard before. This is also supposed to be true, according to the lady that sent it in to me. She seems to think she was visited by her deceased ancestor, and that he had a very important lesson for her. And that lesson is, don't burn your candle at both ends. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I once had a supernatural experience. It was a visitation from beyond the grave, as corny as that might sound. It was a legit vision of some sort, but it looked completely real to me. The thing is, I was a kid who was very hard to impress. I thought of myself as a materialist, and in those days I thought materialism was the same as realism. I don't feel that way anymore, but my behavior throughout this story is that of someone who felt they already understood the entire world at the age of 13. I continued to think I knew better than everyone else for a long time after that too, so don't think of me as any sort of role model. I am an example of what not to do. First of all, if you are so lucky as to get visited by the dead, do not shrug it off. Do not assume it will ever happen again, because there's no guarantee that you will ever get a second chance. It might be scary, and it's probably gonna come at a bad time, like when you're busy or when you're trying to sleep. But try to have a little respect, and pay attention to what you're being told. I once read that Paul McCartney had a vision of his late mother Mary appearing as the Virgin Mother, and she told him, "Let it be." He wrote down her message and came away with a pretty decent song, I'd say. Me? I got a visit from the land of the dead, and I thought I was too important to take notice. I was a fool. Don't be like me. So I had been sleepwalking for a month or two before this incident, and I don't know if my grandfather was also the reason for that. Maybe he had been trying to reach me for a while. I would wake up in places outside not remembering how I'd gotten there. The time I saw Grandpa, it started off like that. I woke up standing outside on a somewhat windy and chilly night. I was standing near a patch of woods behind a swing set on the grounds of the local elementary school that I had once attended. It was at this point that a dead man walked in a kind of a clunky way out of the woods over there. He was so pale he was almost blinding. My family are all pale, but this guy took it to a new level. I recognized him instantly from photos on the piano in my family home. He was the father of my mother. I remembered his features, and I had no doubt it was him. I also remembered hearing that he died when I was very young. I have no memories about him, but I've been told he cared about me a great deal when I was a baby, and he doted over me. You might have thought I would have been nice about this, but I began talking to myself as though my grandfather weren't even there. I told myself I must be hallucinating, or that I really was still asleep. My class in school had recently read the Charles Dickens Christmas Carol out loud. We'd take turns reading and then pass it on as everyone followed along at their desks. I thought the entire thing was a load of hokum. There was no such thing as ghosts, and the idea of them returning from beyond to teach us moral lessons, that was the most laughable idea of all. So when I saw this form moving closer to me, looking like my dead grandfather, I just knew this was a dream or hallucination. My subconscious must have been inspired by the Christmas Carol reading, and now I was being given the Scrooge treatment by my own subconscious. Okay, Grandpa, if that is your real name, what is my Christmas Carol lesson? I demanded to know in the rudest way possible. I watched as this feeble form approached me. He looked frozen all over, walking through the snow out of the woods. He appeared bloody all over too, mostly under the ice. I didn't know at the time when this happened, but my grandfather had died in a car accident. His body's never been found, but the car was found at the bottom of a steep hill and completely smashed to pieces. If I had known that at the time, then it might have made sense for my subconscious to have made Grandpa look so smashed up. But since I assumed at the time that he had died of old age, I should have seen a very different vision of that old man. He was holding something that was lit up and giving off smoke. When he got close enough, I saw that it was literally a candle, burning on both ends. Like that cliche, don't burn your candle from both ends. Don't spend all your fuel before you have a replacement supply. Don't kill yourself in the short term if it might also kill your energy for your long-term goals too. Kind of a weird message to give to a 13-year-old girl, but Grandpa did say he was worried about me becoming too serious when I grew up, working too hard when I grew up. He kept saying he was warning me about adulthood. Well, I was the most adult 13-year-old that there was, and quite frankly, I could not wait to grow up. I was looking forward to responsibility. I was looking forward to long work days. Heck, I was even looking forward to paying bills. I was a very weird 13-year-old. And I guess that was why Grandpa felt so bad for me that he did all he had to do to get this message to me. Now, he didn't look like a ghost. He looked like a dead man walking painfully in a reanimated corpse. I wonder if he was in great pain, or if it was a kind of a numbness that he felt, being so dead and so frozen. I know one thing I didn't feel in that moment, and that was empathy. I didn't ask Grandpa if I could do anything to ease his discomfort. I didn't offer him anything. I just smirked. I stood there talking to myself about how he wasn't there, and I smirked. The metaphor, the candle burning on both ends in his hand. To me, that was corny. It was like something from a Greek myth. How out of date is that? Old stuff was beneath me because I was so much smarter than those old dead peeps, right? I mean, I was probably the smartest of them all. Looking so sad that his expression still haunts me to this day, Grandfather lowered his shoulders, accepted defeat, and then he shuffled painfully back to hell, or heaven, or wherever he can afford an apartment in the afterlife, I suppose. I grew up fast, and I grew up hard. I was told by a TV commercial that I could have it all, and TV wouldn't lie now, would it? I believed in TV more than I believed in my own ancestor come back from the grave trying to save my soul. I believe people who are paid to lie more than I believe my own flesh and blood looking out for me. So I burned through 3 husbands and 4 children, barely learning my kids' names. One time I called the nanny by my daughter's name and I called my daughter by the nanny's name. I had priorities. I was an important businesswoman with an active love life. Well, this Christmas, none of my husbands wants to see me. None of my children wants to see me. My youngest daughter took her own life rather than have me as a mother for one more day. I've kind of made a mess of everything. None of the hard work I did ended up mattering. Sure, I have money in the bank, but I'd trade it all for one more day with my daughter. Heck, even for one more day with any of my living family. To them, I'm the dead one. If I even tried to apologize, I'd be laughed at. The same way I laughed at my poor grandfather so many years ago. So if you're anything like me, you're rolling your eyes at my corny old-fashioned morality tale, and you're about to fast forward to the Dogman story. I don't blame you. That's what I would have done too. Look, I'm not saying put your phone down, God forbid. I'm not saying go back to living like a human being, heaven forfend. All I'm suggesting here is that it might be a good thing once in a while to maybe make a little eye contact, to maybe listen a bit to what the other girl has to say, or even listen to what men have to say, as crazy an idea as that would be. Alright, maybe don't go that far, but force yourself to slow down once in a while. Force yourself to remember other people are exactly like you, a person who means well, and has dreams and passions same as you do. Even if that other person is your dead grandfather who passed away when you were a young child. Happy Christmas, everyone. Hey, do any of you like these adult coloring books or digital coloring books? I've heard that some people like them, so I made this one. You can print them out and color them by marker or crayon, or you can color them digitally in whatever manner it is that people do things like that. No, I did not draw these images. I'm the editor and the archivist. The price is $209 for over 60 images of scary dogmen and werewolves. We got werewolves chasing ladies. This guy here is running from a werewolf that already bit off half of one of his arms, it looks like. It's a crazy and fun, wild time. I guess you can judge for yourself if it's good for kids. I don't know. I don't have kids myself, so I can't really tell you. I know I would have liked it when I was young, but I don't know if that counts because I was a weird kid. Anyway, the link is in the description and the pinned comment, so check it out if you'd like to. Since it's digital, you can actually get it on Christmas Day as a last-minute present, or Hanukkah, since tonight when this show premieres is the last day of the holiday for 2023. And as I stated earlier in the program, I was specifically asked to share this story with you tonight. The lady who sent it to me calls it the Hanukkah Dogman Miracle. Dear Scary Stories NYC, this is a story that happened when my husband Morton and I were both 51 years old in the year 2003. We were out driving in the cold in December, heading home from my husband's Uncle Lenny's house, where we had celebrated the last night of Hanukkah that year. It was a lovely time, and I was looking forward to getting home to my warm bed. Well, such a thing was not to happen on that night. We were on some godforsaken highway in some godforsaken woods when Morton had a flat tire. He momentarily lost control of the vehicle, and the car spun out of control into a tree. The tree missed smashing me by 2 feet, possibly, but it bent the front right wheel around itself before we came to a halt. Then flames erupted from the engine, and we got out of the car expecting it to blow up like they do on television. Neither of us were feeling injured yet, but a doctor explained it to me later on that this was because we were in shock without realizing that we were in shock. I know I felt perfectly normal, but I was actually flying high on adrenaline or whatever it is that nervous systems flood you with at times like this. The doctor told me that it was this state of shock that produced a wolfman or dogman who appeared to walk out of the woods and come across the highway toward me and my Morton. The doctor told me later that the werewolf was never real, but that Morton and I were having a mass hallucination. He said we were both hallucinating the same thing. I don't see how that's possible, because to me the wolfman was real in every way that I could tell. Isn't the scientific method about using your senses to judge what is real? Well, I heard this werewolf. It sounded halfway between a crazed mongrel dog and a baboon or gorilla. It smelled like the zoo. It looked angry and very agitated. It was breathing way too hard. It didn't need to be panting like that. So it was clearly upset. Stop me when I say something that sounds like a hallucination to you. Still, I am not a doctor, so maybe Morton and I got chased into the cold woods on that dark night by a hallucination from our imaginations. When we found a small house, we ran up to it, hoping that whoever lived there would let us in. But it wasn't really a home. It was more of a shack in the middle of the woods. Just a shack made out of parts of older buildings, with a couple of windows in 2 sides of it. The door was open, so we went inside and hunkered down in the darkness. The werewolf man was on us pretty soon after we got inside, and he tried to push the door open. Morton held it shut by keeping his legs propped up on the door. I looked around, and it didn't seem that this place was going to hold up for long if that monster decided to get serious about huffing and puffing and blowing our house down. Soon enough, the monster had walked around to the side of the little building and was looking right at me through the window. I could barely see anything. It was such a dark night. Meanwhile, you know that dogman had eyes that could see in the dark much better than me or my Morton. Even though it was 2 against 1, it seemed like an unfair fight to me, and I was scared about our chances of surviving the night. I dropped to my knees desperately and began searching around inside that shack. This must have been a place for storage. Storage of what? Apparently storage of useless garbage. But then, I found a generator, at the same time as the dog-headed bear man smashed one of the windows in. I pulled this thingy on the whatnot, and va-ba-ba-ba-room, the world's loudest engine roared into life. As it sputtered on, so did this incredibly bright searchlight that I had not noticed was also in the shack there with us. The werewolf did not like that loud generator, and it liked the bright light even less. It backed away into the woods. I could still see it off in the distance behind a tree, but it wasn't close enough to do any harm anymore. I told Morton all we have to do now is wait till the morning, and we could go find a payphone and call a tow truck. Morton is always so gloomy though, God love him, and he checked the fuel level in the generator. The generator's almost out of gas, he reported solemnly. It's 8 hours till sunlight, but we only have maybe 1 hour of fuel left for this light. I gasped. Morton, what night is it tonight? It's the final day of Hanukkah. This is the holiday celebrating fuel for lights lasting whatever it was 8 times more than the usual, just like our generator is going to have to do. It was a mitzvah. We were being asked to have faith. Morton told me I was a crazy cat lady, and there is some truth to that, but it didn't mean I wasn't right. We were being asked to have faith, and I know I did. I told Morton to hold me for warmth, and the two of us napped lightly until the sound of the engine sputtering out woke us both up. But the sunlight of the dawn was already streaking into that little 2-window shack. I looked outside and I couldn't see any hairy monsters anywhere. I have read that dog-headed entities guard the places where life and death cross over. For this reason, I implore you, if you go into the dark places where such creatures exist, bring your own faith. Whatever faith that is, bring it with you, and cling to it until you are back in the normal daylit world again. That's the lesson I learned from the Hanukkah Dogman miracle. Mix black and white and you get gray. Mix executive with producer and you get Angie K. Please join me in thanking tonight's executive producer Angie K for helping to make this episode possible. Angie likes our Dogman stories, but not so much the other ones though. If you would like to get to see the secret members only episodes that Angie gets to see, then you can join our channel. There's currently 2 ways to do that, and here to explain both, plus more, is our international TV spokesmongrel, Henry Lee Dogman. Hank? Thanks, Biggie, and thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos, or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after I think 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.